On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, details on the Model 3's warranty are revealed. The federal electric vehicle tax credit is safe. Elon Musk teases some big new software updates coming soon. Tesla owners remain extremely happy with their vehicles, and more. Happy holidays, friends. I am Ryan McCaffrey. This is Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast, episode number 125 for Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2017. I am flanked, as usual, by Daisy the Boxer puppy. I was about to say Maggie the Boxer, which I've caught myself doing a number of times here and there, but a midday sleeping Daisy the Boxer here. It's very rare that there's daylight outside when I record the podcast. Usually it's pretty late at night, but we've got some holiday preparations going on, got some family in town, so I'm sort of taking any little window I can get to try and get the podcast done and recorded. A little bit of a slow news week this week as expected, but hopefully I've still got enough to cover here that you'll find your time was well spent listening to the podcast, as I always hope that you find your time is well spent listening to this. I'll tell you real quick that TeslaCon last weekend went very, very well. I really want to thank those of you who checked it out. I got a lot of wonderful feedback on that from the folks that did attend. And the full 2-day archive is available. If you weren't able to make it or whatever reason you weren't there, if you were interested, it is $50 for the full archive. So it's 2 days worth of presentations and content. You can get that at the TeslaCon website, which is teslacon.online. I have to say my topic, as I had mentioned, I think a week or two ago, was how Tesla succeeded where DeLorean failed, sort of comparing and contrasting what are the last two major American startups, automotive startups, and they happen to be the only two car companies in the entire world that I would sort of comfortably call myself something of an expert in. But the talk went well. I was really paranoid. I was really afraid that I would only have about 20 minutes worth of stuff to talk about, because I made a sort of a heavy outline, but I didn't write an actual script out, a speech or anything. So I was like, well, we'll see how this goes. But the hour ended up getting filled, no problem. Had a great time with it. I want to thank Ben again for inviting me to participate in that. And again, thanks to those of you who were there, and also to those of you who might still check it out if you're interested in that archive. Also, I hope all of you have an absolutely wonderful holiday season as it progresses. Hopefully you have received or are getting some time off to be with your family and friends. I know I have enough history now with this podcast to know these holiday weeks are usually some of my lowest. I get the fewest number of downloads because I get it. People are traveling and they're not sort of in their normal routine. I get it, but it's like I have to do this. It's like a compulsion at this point. I've got to do the podcast. I just have this paranoid fear that if I ever take a week off, the listeners will just go away. So it is something that's always in the back of my mind. But really, I do think that routine is important. That expectation is important. That you can trust that I'm going to be here each and every week. Rain or shine, holiday or no holiday. But next week, I will say, we'll see how slow things are next week. I would very much encourage folks to call in on the Ride the Lightning hotline. Next week, we may need to lean into that a little bit. You can, of course, always record something on your smartphone and send it to me at the podcast email address, which is teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or there is the toll-free Ride the Lightning hotline number you can just leave a message on, which is 1-888-989-8752. I would especially be curious to hear from any of you out there who may be taking delivery of your Model 3 between now and the next show. I would love to hear your impressions, what you think of it. And if you're comfortable with it, I would also love to hear what you're coming from. I suppose the first batch of you will all be coming from a Model S or a Model X, pardon me. I tried to say S and X at the same time. That didn't really work out so well. Maybe even a couple of Roadster people too making the jump for all I know, but would absolutely love to hear from any brand new Model 3 owners out there. Because again, I've said it before, but I think it's, I'm not going to take every call because eventually it's going to, be hundreds and thousands of you taking your deliveries of your Model 3. But I think for the time being, it's fun, it's happy, it's positive, it's enthusiastic for all of us listening, including me, to share in your happy moment that you've been waiting, almost 2 years for. March 31st, 2016 was when all of us put down our reservations, or sometime shortly thereafter, probably for most of you, and it's been a long wait. Not as long a wait as some of the Roadster owners and the S and the X owners had to go through, but hey, it's a long time, and I know with the Model 3 specifically, for a lot of folks, obviously not that first wave who are existing Tesla owners, but for a lot of folks, it's going to be their first Tesla, myself included. So anyway, would love to hear from you on the Ride the Lightning hotline if, in fact, you are one of the apparently high number of folks taking delivery here in the coming week or two here prior to the end of the year. Tesla, of course, always has an end of quarter push. In fact, on this topic, I'll just mention, I'm alluding to it here, but to flat out state it, the first non-employee deliveries have already happened this past week and are scheduled. There are many, many more happening between now and December 31st. So this is just fantastic news. Now, no invites have gone out yet for non-owners. So we haven't quite worked our way all the way down that priority queue yet. I suspect the way things seem to be going, that's probably going to happen in January. Now, if I look, I reserved March 31st, camped out overnight. I was the 13th person in line at the Palo Alto store. So I'm theoretically very high up on the non-employee, non-owner list. And my delivery estimate still shows a December to February window should I elect to take a first production vehicle, which, as all of you know, I'm not. I'm waiting for a dual motor. But given that information, I think it seems like Tesla is still very much on track to hit that, based on the fact that folks that have configured and are taking delivery, it's been about a 4-week turnaround, sometimes less, from configurations to deliveries. So theoretically, Tesla could send out invites to people in my window in the last week of January and still get those cars delivered by the end of February to sort of hit that, to stay in that window that Tesla themselves has been giving to people. So if you are a non-owner in California who waited and ordered, put your reservation down on day one before the reveal of the Model 3 later that night, then that's about the time frame that I would be expecting for that process to start happening there. With anything sooner than that, those configuration invites going out at the end of January being maybe a nice bonus. So that's just me. I am speculating there, but that seems to be just based on the information that we have available so far. That's what I would look to. Now, existing Tesla owners in other states would probably be in that same window too, I would imagine. There's the you gain the priority based on your ownership status, but maybe sort of lose it a little bit based on your geography, your geographical location. But so I would look out if that is your criteria as well. If you are a non-California Tesla owner, I would suspect that January is when you'll probably see your invitation, because it does seem like that all of the folks that are being invited to configure now are California Tesla owners. So that is the update on the Model 3 delivery front. Now, really the biggest news of the week, as you no doubt saw from the episode title on this particular week, is the Model 3 warranty. Tesla did release the Model 3 warranty information. Now, the basic warranty on the car is 4 years or 50,000 miles, of course, whichever comes first, and that is identical to the general bumper-to-bumper warranty on the Model S and the Model X. For the battery and drive unit. On the S and the X, it's 8 years, unlimited miles. On the Model 3, there is a limitation, but it's a fairly high one. If you are purchasing the long-range battery, you get 8 years and 120,000 miles, whichever comes first, for your battery and drive unit. Now, that's an average. You'd have to drive 15,000 miles a year. That's a pretty good bit of driving. So that seems like a pretty healthy warranty there. It's not quite as good on the standard battery, should you be purchasing that Model 3, 8 years, 100,000 miles there. So that is, but that's still, I mean, that's what? That's 12,000 miles a year and a little bit of change. So, which is still very much kind of right in line with the American averages for annual mileage. So the other interesting part of this is that the battery is guaranteed to have at least a 70% range retention during that time. Now, 70% of a 310 mile battery, you're basically shaving about 90 miles off. So you'd be looking at interestingly 220, which is the standard range battery, the standard battery's range. But the good news there is, despite that 70% guarantee, all real-world tests and data on Teslas that have been made up until now have suggested that your retention level on your battery's range is going to actually be much, much higher than that. Think closer to 90%. Now, the big difference with Model 3, and it remains to be seen whether this is going to affect the retention rate, is, of course, that the Model 3 uses the new 2170 form factor battery cells, whereas all the Teslas that we have data on so far, ones that have been subjected to high mileage and, like in the case of the Roadsters, time, those cars are all using the, I say old in quotes, I don't mean it in a derogatory way, but the old 18650 battery cells. So, as far as the warranty goes, it's all fine and expected. I don't think there's anything that's an unpleasant surprise. It's good to have this public now, because I will say, Tesla sure waited till the last minute to make this warranty information public. They did not publish it until the first, non-employee deliveries were happening. But it is good to have that information out there. So now it's something we can all be aware of heading into our Model 3s. Now, no information on whether you can purchase an extended warranty or not. So you'll recall that Elon had tweeted out a while back that it wouldn't really matter. That was sort of, I'm paraphrasing, but that was something that Elon had said. So we'll see if that's something that comes online later, and owners who already have their cars are given a chance to sort of not retroactively purchase, but to be kind of grandfathered in and purchase the extended warranty after they already have the car. We'll see about that. All right, so next up this week, let's wind down the year on some good news. A reminder, I will be here next week. There will be a show that publishes on New Year's Eve, December 31st, because that happens to be a Sunday. So the final episode of this show for 2017 will be on the 31st of December, and then the first episode of 2018 will be, of course, the first Sunday, which happens to be January 7th, 2018. But good news to wind down the year as far as specifically the electric vehicle federal tax credit goes. We do have good news there. I'm actually going to hand this over. Got a call from Adam in Sonoma who called in about this. So Adam, take it away. Tell us what you got.
Hey, Adam in Sonoma. Just wanted to let you know that the president signed the tax bill today, and as you probably read, the plug-in credit did survive all the full credit. So it's a big win for folks who want to make a switch on Ford plug-in car. Thanks to everyone who listened to, made calls to their senators, representatives. Thanks to advocacy groups like Plug-in America and automakers who lobbied. And thanks very much for your attention to this issue. Have a good day.
Thank you, Adam. It certainly is good news for folks listening to this podcast, including me, by the way, that the federal tax credit for electric vehicles will not, in fact, be going away. I have to tell you, I really thought that it wasn't going to survive after it was omitted from the House's original version of the bill, of the tax bill. I thought for sure, well, that's not going to survive. But as Adam notes, credit to those of you who called your elected officials and who made some noise about this, because you certainly helped. So that is excellent news. A quick note, though, it's not officially signed by the president yet, but it's heading to his desk and it will be signed. So, technicality, but just to add that little note. But yes, this will be happening. So the federal tax credit will be continuing as far as Tesla is concerned, and I suppose the other manufacturers are concerned. It will be continuing. So now it's just a question of when will the 200,000th American Tesla be delivered, thus triggering the phase out. So be keeping a very, very, very close eye on that, because that's going to affect a lot of us as well. Stay tuned for more there. Hopefully we'll hear news on that from Tesla in early January. So that was when they had suggested we might hear more on that front. Next up this week, Tesla is number one for the third year in a row on Consumer Reports' owner satisfaction survey, which of course ranks them by manufacturer. They're not by a specific car, but they are by brand. Tesla getting an overall score of 90. Porsche, once again, the number 2 vehicle brand at a score of 85. Hyundai's Genesis sub-brand is new to the chart at number 3. They scored an 81. And then rounding out the rest of the top 10, Chrysler, Audi, Mazda, Subaru, Toyota, Honda, and Lincoln. According to Consumer Reports, if you're curious, quote, the owner satisfaction score, based on whether an owner says he or she would buy the same car again, measures whether a car lives up to expectations. Respondents also rate their cars in 6 categories: driving experience, comfort, value, styling, audio, and climate systems. Combined with Consumer Reports' ratings, our owner satisfaction survey gives car buyers valuable guidance when they're shopping for a vehicle, end quote. I think it's a little interesting that only 3 American automakers in the top 10, and obviously Tesla is not only one of them, but ranked number 1 for the third year in a row. It's going to be interesting to see how the Model 3 affects this, if at all, whether it sort of strengthens Tesla's lock on the number 1 spot, or whether, getting it into so many more people's hands just sort of by math, you'll get more unhappy people, maybe, that could be enough to pull it down. But I suspect, obviously, I'm a Tesla super fan doing this show, but I have to think that as the Model 3 does deliver in many tens of thousands of units, if not 100,000 plus units in 2018, that it's going to be a lot of people like me taking delivery of the car who they've not had a car before, an electric car, or specifically at least a Tesla, and they're going to be super excited and hopefully very happy with the cars. In fact, now that I think about it, I would think, just if I were to place a bet now, that Tesla will maintain that number 1 spot next year, because every single person that takes delivery of a Model 3 in 2018 is someone who reserved the car a pretty, long time ago. Like everybody there's so many people on the waiting list. They're not going to clear, they'll clear a decent chunk of the waiting list, hopefully a lot of it, but not all of it, I don't think, this year. So therefore, basically all the Model 3s are going to the enthusiastic early adopters like me and like all of you listening to this podcast. So I would suspect if folks like us were surveyed by Consumer Reports after having our Model 3s, we're probably going to generally be enthusiastic about the car, having waited so long for it. So I would, if I'm a betting man, I would place a small wager on Tesla maintaining that top spot for a 4th year in a row next year. So we shall see. I'll do this story again in a year's time. Next up this week, Elon Musk tweeting a little bit, finally. He's been kind of quiet on the Twitter front lately. He says, quote, some cool software updates coming soon. And then in another tweet later, a major navigation overhaul coming in early 2018. We'll be light years ahead of the current system, but we are testing it rigorously before rolling it out. Now, I have to say here, I'm actually at a bit of a loss on this one. I know it's my job as somebody who's putting together this podcast to have something to say about this, but I am at a loss for what light years ahead of the current system might mean. So, do I have any experts in mapping technology in my audience or a related field who might be able to hazard an educated guess as to what a navigation overhaul that's, quote, light years ahead of the current system might actually look like? I am very curious. Would it integrate every single business you could possibly imagine so that you could use the voice command and say, take me to insert name of obscure neighborhood restaurant here? Like, is that the kind of thing we'd be talking about, or is it just more efficient routes? I want to know what this means, and because I'm not entirely sure what it means. So I welcome your guesses. You can call in on the Ride the Lightning hotline. You can email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com. Whatever, I want to know. I'm very curious what smarter people than me think that this might actually be. Couple more stories before we move on to the Ride the Lightning hotline this week. Superchargers are no longer going to allow commercial use. I'm going to let Bob from Austin tell you about this. Bob, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Bob from Austin. I have a few thoughts on the new Tesla Supercharger fair use policy. The details are on the Tesla website if you search hard enough. First, it's important to remember that this new policy applies only to vehicles purchased after December 15th, so it doesn't apply to any of us who already own a Tesla. Also of note, it applies to any Tesla purchase, whether new or used, whether from Tesla or a third party. They simply ask you do not use superchargers to support commercial use of your Tesla, such as taxis, ride-sharing like Uber, or delivering goods. A lot of healthy discussion on user groups about this, with some great ideas of how Tesla might enforce or modify their policy. My thoughts? This is expected, as Tesla owners misuse the supercharger resources. We all know superchargers are for long-distance travel, yet we hear of supercharger stations filled with local owners or commercial vehicles, for example, taxi companies. I think it's a reasonable policy, one that anticipates new owners who might abuse the supercharger system. We're all in this together. Unfortunately, a few users have caused this problem, and I support Tesla's reaction. I appreciate Tesla fighting to keep the supercharger program the best charging infrastructure in the world. So when you buy a Tesla, you know you're ready to travel just about anywhere and know you can stop and charge as you go. Merry Christmas to you and your family, to all of your listeners, and to all the people working hard at Tesla on our new Model 3s.
I couldn't agree with you more, Bob. It's the old "a few bad apples spoil the bunch" saying that's in full effect here. This is really only relevant now for those of you who live in higher concentration areas of Tesla ownership. So Bay Area people, Southern California folks, and maybe Norway friends as well. But I think it's good that Tesla is being proactive about this, because Model 3 is about to ramp way up, and that means that the number of Teslas on the roads all over the country, and soon enough all over the world, is about to multiply. So thankfully, too, existing owners are grandfathered in, or I suppose grandfathered out might be the better turn of phrase in this. So this is only going to apply to new vehicles, which I 100% agree with, because you can't penalize folks who've already bought their Teslas under different supercharging terms and conditions. So change to supercharging policy there. And finally, to wrap up the news in this, I suppose, technically pre-holiday week, as covering the week before Christmas, UPS, one other quick Tesla Semi update. I know I seem to every week say that I won't be doing these every week, but every week there's been a substantial enough development. This week, just a quick note, The biggest order record has been broken again. UPS one-upping PepsiCo by ordering 125 Tesla semis. And, as Electrek happens to note, reservations for the Tesla Semi have only just begun in Europe. They just opened this week, and in fact, they only opened in 3 territories: Norway, the Netherlands, and the UK. So the future is really looking pretty bright for the Tesla Semi. And as I mentioned last week, this is before they've even hit the road. If these trucks are as good as Elon Musk says they are, and by extension, they end up having a tangible effect on the company, meaning the company that orders the truck, the customer, let's call them the customer. The customers, if it has a tangible effect on the customer's bottom line and its carbon footprint, then I think Tesla's going to sell a whole lot more of these in 2019 and beyond as they actually hit the road and word spreads in the trucking community. I mean, it's that will happen, absolutely. All right, that wraps it up for the week of Tesla news. I've got a few Ride the Lightning calls for you lined up right after the short musical break here, so stick with me, and I'll be right back. Welcome to the Ride the Lightning hotline. It is your part of the show where you can call in with your questions, comments, discussion topics. You can drop me a line anytime. The toll-free number, call in, leave a message. It's 1-888-989-8752. That's 1-888-989-TSLA. Alternatively, you can use your smartphone's built-in voice recorder, record something on there, and email me the file to teslapodcast@gmail.com. Of course, if you are calling in using that Ride the Lightning hotline, I want to thank lifeonrecord.com for providing it. If you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. Let's kick it off with Joel in Boston, who has feedback on the whole wheels, tires in snow thing from a caller last week. Joel, take it away.
Hi, Ryan. This is Joel from Boston, Massachusetts. I heard the call about snow tires and wanted to offer a little feedback, as I've had some experience with that as well, living up in Vermont and in Montreal for a bit. And what I did was I pulled some information from Tire Rack on snow tires. And so the call last week was about someone who was choosing between, I think, a 19 and 18-inch tires. And Tire Rack had some good information on this. And essentially, they're saying that choosing the smaller tires is actually better for snow performance. Now, I agree with you that, shorter profile tires or low profile tires work great for dry pavement and better cornering ability and whatnot, but not for snow performance. So from Tire Rack, unfortunately, wide, low profile tires have to plow a wide path through deep snow, where narrower tires have an easier time. So if you're likely to drive through deeper snow this year, you'll want winter snow tires in wheels and sizes that help put the laws of physics on your side. They sort of have additionally, when choosing base model sizing or minus sizing, not only would deep snow traction be enhanced, but the cost of the base wheels for minus size snow tires is actually usually lower as well, and that's something that you'd mentioned. So if you like the look of the 19s, I'd get the 19s, but I'd also get snow tires. Now, the nice thing about Boston is we get a good amount of snow, but it's nothing like even just a couple hundred miles more north, where you pretty much should have snow tires for extra safety. So anyway, that's my advice. Love your show, and look forward to hearing the next podcast.
Thanks, Joel. I'm glad to hear that Tire Rack confirmed everything I talked about last week. I do like the advice that you gave about having a set of 18-inch tires and wheels specifically for the snow if you decide to get the 19-inch sport wheels for your Model 3 and you happen to live in a winter climate region. I mean, granted, it's not cheap to do that, but that does get you the best of both worlds. Plus, if you were only running those 18-inch aero wheels with snow tires on them for 3, maybe 4 months out of the year, one set of those winter tires would probably last you many years. But don't take it from me. Take it from someone who's driven many, many years in a winter climate. Pete from Carmel, Indiana, you're on the air.
Hey Ryan, this is Pete from Carmel, Indiana. I was listening to your podcast and I heard a hotline caller talking about winter driving in Boston. I'm sure that's a nightmare. In Indiana, we get a fair bit of snow, and over the years, I've owned four-wheel drives and rear-wheel drives. I think the key really is having snow tires, and this is underappreciated by many people, but that's by far the most important factor. I think if you want to be safe, you put 18s with snow tires, and then maybe in the summer, you swap them out if you have the extra funds to get the vanity wheels. But that by far is the best solution in my experience. And I've driven many cars that way. In fact, I had a BMW 7 Series, an old used one. And before I had the snow tires, I was all over the road. Once I put snow tires on that thing, it was very easy to drive and very maneuverable. So anyway, hope that's helpful. Again, I appreciate the podcast. I enjoy listening to it. Thanks and have a good week.
Thank you, Joel and Pete, for your calls on that topic. You guys are definitely more qualified to speak on that topic than I am. One other call in the Ride the Lightning hotline this week. It comes to us from Matt in Fremantle, Australia. He's got an idea for another use for the Tesla semi-truck, which involves autonomy. Matt, you are on the air.
Good morning, Ryan. I hope you're having a good day today. I was thinking about other uses for the semi-truck, and I came across what seemed like a no-brainer: electric buses. I'm sure it wouldn't be that difficult to adapt the technology for public transport purposes, and in true Tesla style, each passenger could have a touchscreen showing a map of where they are and where they need to get off. And then later on, once it's proven, I love the idea of autonomous buses that just run day and night really consistently. You could also modify those coaches used for long-distance journeys to use a mega charger to get across large masses like the States or Europe or Australia, or have autonomous taxis that are always waiting at popular event locations and airports. What do you think of these ideas? Thanks, Matt from Fremantle, Western Australia.
Thank you, Matt. Now, thankfully, there are cities around the world, and San Francisco, where I live, happens to be one of them, that already use electric buses that use hooks that are off the roofs of the buses that catch onto power lines that run above the streets overhead. It's not the most elegant solution, obviously, but at least it's something that's already in place. I agree that Tesla could definitely come up with a more elegant solution, and repurposing the semi-technology, I think, could indeed be a great way to jumpstart it. In fact, I would think that a Tesla bus wouldn't need as large of a battery pack as the Semi does, because it wouldn't be hauling around quite such a heavy payload, nor would it need as great of a range necessarily, because it would all be intra-city travel. And obviously, as well, electric vehicles are more efficient in stop-and-go city driving and less efficient on the highways, whereas ICE vehicles, so a gas-powered bus, is the opposite. It's less efficient in stop-and-go city traffic than it is out on the highway. I think a 300 or maybe 400-mile range could probably last the entire day in just about any major metropolitan city with plenty of juice to spare, and then certainly they could be charged overnight. They wouldn't even need to be mega charged necessarily. So yeah, I could see Tesla trying that at some point. I mean, you'll recall in the Secret Master Plan Part 2, Elon outlined a plan for a minibus that was going to be based on the Model X chassis. Now, he soon abandoned that, but a full-size bus using semi-tech would probably be a better solution to society. But my guess, and this is certainly just my guess, is that Elon may have thought that buses that they're just not as big of an issue that needs tackling, because buses are already an inherently more efficient form of transportation than the 50-plus individual cars on the road that people on a bus are thus not using those cars. So the thing that I always like to go back to with these kinds of things is always remember to go back to the mission statement of Tesla. Elon's decisions are largely driven by that. We've seen that from him over the years. But to sum up, though, I do very much like your line of thinking on this, and I could definitely see a Tesla bus happening sometime in the next decade. Great stuff, Matt, as well as Pete from Carmel and Joel from Boston. Thank you guys so much for calling in. Again, I kindly invite you guys out there, everybody else, to do the same. Give me a call anytime. Again, record something on your smartphone and just email it to me, teslapodcast@gmail.com. You can also leave a message on the toll-free Ride the Lightning hotline, which again is 1-888-989-8752. I do anticipate a fairly slow news week next week, between Christmas and New Year's. So would love some good calls in there to drum up some good chatter to fill out a nice show. I do have one other segment planned. As I mentioned, my 2018 Tesla predictions. I've got some good stuff that I've been thinking about, and I hope you will enjoy, or at least maybe get you thinking and wanting to call in and react to that as well. So I'm going to do that on next week's show. But for now, let me come right back after a short musical break, share some final thoughts with you, do a few plugs, and then hit the road for the holidays. Although not literally, like I said, I'm staying put. I'm on a staycation right now. So be right back right after this. During that break that I was setting up for this last segment, Daisy has somehow, she's not even fully grown. She's only 30-something pounds. She has a trip to the vet next week for a vaccine, so we'll get to weigh her in then and see how she's doing. But she has managed to stretch out. I wish you guys could see this. She's almost the entire length of the couch. She's like frog-legged it behind her. Her front paws are out in front of her. She has like elongated herself as much as she possibly can. And this dog's she's almost as long as my entire couch. Boy, she does look comfortable. I have to say that dogs are very, very good at looking comfortable at almost all times, aren't they? But as 2017 winds down, the next episode, next week's episode 126, yeah, it's going to publish on New Year's Eve, but most of you will probably actually hear it in 2018, whether it's January 1st, January 2nd, etc. But so what I wanted to do was actually take a few minutes now on this show to really just thank all of you. I try to do this throughout the year and not wait till the end of the year to say thank you, but I really, truly cannot communicate my gratitude to everybody that listens to this podcast enough, because it's the number of downloads I get. It's not an ego thing. It's not like again, I started this podcast, as I've told you before, because I'm so enthusiastic, borderline obsessed with Tesla in a good way. And my wife got tired of hearing me talk about it all the time, and I thought, well, I've been podcasting for 10 years and I really enjoy it, and it scratches my radio itch that I never went into radio after college. Like I was sort of one fork in the road and I took a different path. And this podcast has grown a good bit over, gosh, it's been 2.5 years now since I started this thing. And there's really been such a wonderful, lovely little mini Tesla community that, of course, we're all part of the larger Tesla community to some degree or another. But just this podcast alone, like I mean, the fact that I have regular callers, whether it's Lawton in Chicago, Mike in Charlottesville, Michael in Millbrae, it's crazy to me that I have people that care enough to call in and participate and be a part of this podcast on a regular basis. It's just, it really is humbling to me. And the 2018 is really going to be, it's not the end of the Tesla journey for a lot of us. It's the beginning. This part's been fun, the anticipatory part, but 2018 is going to be, pardon me, the year when so many of us become Tesla owners for the first time. A lot of you already are, certainly with the S and the X, but there are a lot more of us out here who are going to be getting our Model 3s in 2018. And then the real fun starts. Then you are living with the car, you're invested in the car in both a financial and emotional sense, and hopefully you're going to continue to find the show as useful and entertaining and informative as I hope you do now. And yeah, it's just the positivity, really, that's the number one thing I think I come back to above everything else with this podcast is the positivity that I am so grateful to receive from those of you who call me, who email me, who tweet me, or just listen. It's, I've said this before, but the video game space, I have a lot of wonderful people that participate in my IGN video game community as well. I don't want to make it seem like that's not the case, but the video game community is it's not always quite so positive on a general level, and I am often subjected to strangely just passionately negative things directed my way. And knock on wood, that is not part of this little Ride the Lightning Tesla community that sprung up. And it's just, the positivity really energizes me. I have to tell you, it means a lot. And it just makes this Tesla journey, the waiting and the following every bit of news every week and just doing this podcast and hearing from people, it just makes it so much fun. 2017 was the first year where I actually got to meet a decent number of listeners. Not obviously, a tiny percentage of you in the grand scheme of things, but like I've met a handful of folks now that actually listen to this podcast, and all of you couldn't be sweeter or nicer or more equally enthusiastic about Tesla as I am. I mean, it's really just been phenomenal. This has been a great year for me doing this podcast. Those of you that have contributed on Patreon, supported me on there, I really, really thank you for that as well, because that, again, I've said this before too, I don't want to hammer the point home and bore people with it, but the podcast does take up enough of my time where really without that Patreon, I don't think I could justify keeping this going with everybody's got a limited amount of time, right? And so I just, the Patreon support means so much, the calls, the emails, the tweets. I really just want to thank everybody so much for a wonderful 2017 for me with regard to Ride the Lightning. I mean, those of you, if you've been listening all year, Daisy, she wants to get out because family members are outside. Daisy, come on over here. I'm in the middle of thanking everyone. Come here. Come up in my lap for a minute. Here, come on up. Okay, there we go. All right. You want to sniff the mic? Okay. This is the part where not being on video is really unfortunate because you can see how much bigger she's getting. But that's actually what I wanted to mention next is, if you have been listening all year or the bulk of it, you know that this was not the easiest year for me because of, the loss of my beloved Maggie, who, I mean, some of you, if you're a dog person, you probably get it. And I'm not saying you don't if you're not a dog person, but, I don't want to bore you with details of my personal life that you probably don't care about. But, Maggie, if I never said this before, maybe I did, on that whole period when she passed is like, it's sort of an emotional blur in a sense. But, Maggie was my rock when, I got her, and it was about a year, a little over a year after I got Maggie, I went through a tough divorce. I got married young, and the short version is my wife, now ex-wife, she told me that she was cheating on me, and she just left. And so, and I'm not looking for, I'm believe it or not, I'm actually in a weird way grateful that happened, because it's made me, I think, a better person and a better spouse now. But what happened during that period was I was alone, and so it was just me and Maggie in this house that we were renting over near the San Francisco Bay. It's great house, huge yard that Maggie could run around in, and which is rare here in the Bay Area. And so that dog, Maggie, was basically the reason. I also saw a therapist as well, which was helpful. But Maggie was really the thing that kept my head above water, because my family, my parents, my sister, they're in Arizona. Extended family is New Jersey and a few other places. But I had no one here in the Bay Area, where I had to live my life day to day, go to work. And so I would come home to Maggie. And so that's everybody has a special connection to their dog. I'm not saying that my connection to Maggie, my bond with her was any more or less special than you with your dog. But the point of this is to say that Maggie's passing was extremely difficult for me. And I always knew it would be, but that whenever that day comes, it's not going to be easy, but there were a couple of other things that sort of hit me at the same time, that happened to me in my life at the same time, that basically just caused a lot of anxiety, which I developed insomnia for the first time in my life, and which it's just sort of all, you lose a foundational element like that, and it was a really hard year, is what I'm trying to say, but spending way too many words doing it. By the way, if you want to flip this podcast, turn it off now. If you haven't already, feel free. The podcast stuff is over. I'm just going to do some plugs and mention the kind Patreon producers here in a minute. But I just wanted to say again, it's to sort of wrap up. The 2017 was in many ways a great year for all the reasons that I mentioned a few minutes ago about, the Ride the Lightning community, all of you that have reached out to me in one way or another to talk Tesla this year. Like, it's been awesome in that regard, but it's been the toughest year for me probably of my entire life, honestly. I mean, the divorce thing 10 years ago was, about that was tough too, but yeah, losing Maggie, this companion who kept my head above water, really, on an emotional level. When I would come home, having, when something like that happens to you, I hope you haven't been through it, but you can't escape it. It's always in your thoughts. It's always there, and only time and hopefully the love and support of friends and family can help you with that. And I had Maggie for that. She was the only thing that I could come home to every day, and so that's where Maggie and I's bond really came from. It was, we had a bond before that, but it was forged in fire at that point. And so losing her was hard, and being without a dog was weird and hard too. But even though I wasn't ready for a new one, and so now with Daisy here, and she's just been great. She's getting better every day. Like, the training's going great, and we're bonding, and it's just been awesome. So I'm just rambling at this point, but it's my probably overly personal way of just saying thank you to all of you for your support this year, however you gave it, whether it was on Patreon, or whether it was just listening, or whether it was a tweet or an email or a Ride the Lightning hotline call, or 10 Ride the Lightning hotline calls for some of you. So thank you all so much. This has just been a great year for the podcast, for sure, that I'm very proud of it. I thought the show that I did after the Model 3 launch event, I was really proud of that. I thought that there was a lot to that. There was a lot of cool stuff that I was able to, those firsthand impressions I was able to bring. And I thought I got to finally start doing some interviews on the podcast this year because I found an acceptable technological way to do it that would sound good. So I want to do a lot more of that in 2018, get some more interviews on here, talk to some more people in the community and in hopefully at Tesla too. Hey, Elon, come on the podcast anytime. We'll have a good conversation. I promise you that. But so 2018 is going to be such a fun year. I mean, that's I've been waiting 9 years for 2018, it turns out. I didn't know how long it would be when I started that wait, when I first fell in love with Tesla and knew that the Model 3 was going to be my next car, even before I knew it was called Model 3, before anybody knew it was called Model 3. Well, it was called Model E for a little while, unofficially, never officially. But yeah, 2018 is going to be great. I look forward to, again, to entering the next phase of my Tesla fandom and actually becoming an owner and being able to add that to my perspective that I can bring to this podcast each and every week. So hopefully the podcast is going to get better in 2018. If you like it now, I guess if you're still listening at this point, you must like it. So my goal, hopefully it is going to be better in 2018 for all those reasons I just talked about. And just thank you all so much. I do want to mention the Patreon producers. These are the list of such wonderful folks who not only support me on Patreon, but do so at the $20 level or higher. So, they get their name mentioned every week, which I hope they love hearing their name. They get the bonus extra monthly episode. That's just all the extra Ride the Lightning hotline calls that I don't have time to get to here on the regular show. In fact, by the way, the January edition of that should be hitting like January 1st, or I may even put it up like next, maybe I might even put up on the 30th or 31st or so. I want to do it while I'm kind of off on holiday here and take care of it. So look for that if you're a $10 level or higher Patreon supporter. But I want to thank those $20 level and higher folks. They are Jeff Bartram, Paul Hussey, DJ Harbaugh, Pete White, Wolfgang Obergen, George Cassiopo, David Brander, Jonathan Wales, Scott Gillis, Michael Lucas, Alexi Heft, Lisa Kaz, Michael O'Prey, Logan Willis, Matthew Parra, Michael Lester, Robert Miracle, John Lasher, Jason Chalukas, Emotion Rentals, Richard Ouellette, Sean Fournier, Tim Hyde, Marcus Mayenschein, Lee Sweet, Lars Hoffman, Orion Coates, Aaron Greenberg, and I don't know if I mentioned him last week or if he was new this week, but our newest Patreon producer, Peter Saleh. And Peter, I really hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I think Sallay. I think I'm going with Saleh. Please do correct me if I'm wrong. I want to make sure to get that correct for you. But thank you all so much. And of course, I want to mention my friends at Immaculate Reflections. By the way, how great a name is that? That is as a words guy, a wordsmith, professional writer / editor myself. Immaculate Reflections, A+ name for a car detailing business. So if you are taking delivery of your Model 3 either very soon or just you're planning for it in 2018 and you are thinking about protecting the exterior of that car, be it through paint correction, ceramic coating, paint protection film, or any or all of the above, please check out irdetailing.com. The Immaculate Reflections folks are located a short ways from the Tesla factory. So Northern California folks, or if you're picking up at the Tesla factory, please do keep them in mind. They have over 16 years of experience. They are the Bay Area's premier detailing solution. If you're buying a Model S or Model X, we've got my cousin Pat from Arizona, his referral code to get you unlimited lifetime supercharging for free. So just type in ts.la/Patrick5008 into your web browser, and that will take you to the design studio with that discount code locked in, or you can just give that code to a sales advisor if you happen to be in a Tesla store speaking to a sales advisor as you're ordering your Model S or Model X. What else? Abstract Ocean. Yes, the puddle lights have apparently, I'm told they're extraordinarily popular. So I think they're still in stock, but keep an eye out there. So those the Tesla T logo or the Model S, the S logo, the X logo, or the 3 logo, whatever you want to get to shine down onto the ground from your passenger and driver side door. AbstractOcean.com has that and a bunch of other Tesla accessories. A lot of them are lighting-based accessories, improved lighting kits for the interior, that kind of thing. So check out what they've got at AbstractOcean.com, and if you have never been there before, you can get 20% off of your first order by using the coupon code RTLPodcast at checkout. That's RTL Podcast, all one word there. If you're not already subscribing to the podcast, feel free to do so on your favorite podcast service, be it iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, which of course TuneIn is in the Tesla. You can get this podcast in your Tesla as well. You can also pick up individual MP3 listens or downloads or grab the RSS feed at the hosting site for the podcast, which is teslapodcast.libsyn.com, Libsyn. And I've already given the email address out a couple times. I mentioned as well, you can follow me on Twitter if you're curious. It's a lot of video game stuff because that's the day job, but there's Tesla stuff mixed in there as well. And during baseball season, I tend to tweet a lot about baseball, but it is no longer baseball season, so smaller ratio of baseball tweets. But you can follow me on Twitter at DMC_Ryan. I think that wraps it up. Yes, that is everything on the list. So again, thank you all so much for a wonderful podcast in 2017. It was wonderful for me. Hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. So Happy New Year to all of you. Although, like I said, I will be back for the December 31st episode. So again, the show must go on, and indeed it shall. Every Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time is when you can get a new episode, unless you are a supporter of mine on Patreon, in which case you can get it a little bit early. Usually it's about a day and a half early or so, because usually I record it on late Friday night and post it to Patreon immediately there. So that's an option for you as well if you're on Patreon with me. So again, Happy New Year, everybody. Happy electric motoring to us all in 2018, and I will see you back here next week.